Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellowshow. My name is Kyle. Today, we are going over the AFC South fantasy previews. We just covered the Houston Texans and the Indianapolis Colts, and now we're on to the Jacksonville Jaguars, which is a team that has a lot of new things, a lot of new moving parts. We're going to start with head coach Urban Meyer. This is his first stint in the NFL. He's, of course, been one of the best coaches in college football over the last handful of seasons, starting all the way back at Florida in 2005 to 2010, and then at Ohio State from 2012 to 2018. But again, this is his first stint in the NFL. It should be interesting to see how this works. He's only 56 years old. So we'll see. He's got a lot of new. He's got Trevor Lawrence, so this will be fun to see how those two's careers are tied together in the future. And then they brought in offensive coordinator Darrell Bevell, who's been in the NFL for a long time, starting back with Green Bay as an assistant quarterbacks coach in 2000 to 2005, basically. He was with Minnesota for a handful of seasons as their OC, with Seattle for even more, like 6 seasons as their OC. And then he's been with the Lions the last few seasons, 2019 to 2020. He also was the interim head coach at the end of last season. So you're hiring a guy that's got a lot of NFL experience, a lot of offensive coordinating in different systems, but we kind of know what he is, and we can kind of figure out how he wants to use his offense. So let's take a peek then at the Jacksonville Jaguars 2021 roster here. So I guess maybe we'll skip the depth chart. I just want to see. Let's show you guys who they added. We'll start with the additions in free agency. They lost a couple players here too. They lost Keelan Cole, Chris Conley, and Al Wood. So nothing too major on the departure list here, but let's look at this notable additions list. This is pretty lengthy. So they get Shaq Griffin, cornerback from Seattle, Rayshon Jenkins, safety, defensive tackle Roy Robertson Harris, wide receiver Marvin Jones, wide receiver Jamal Agnew, tight end Chris Manhertz, quarterback CJ Beathard, and running back Carlos Hyde. Now, I like the Marvin Jones and the Jamal Agnew signing because they've been Detroit Lions the last handful of seasons, and that's where Darrell Bevell has he's been coaching those guys. So he knows them. They understand his offense. That could be a really nice fit for a guy like Marvin Jones. But a lot of nice solid signings here. I think Jacksonville is going to be sneaky competitive this season, and much better on defense too. You see these notable additions with the cornerback, the safety, the defensive tackle. A lot of nice defensive pieces here. And then let's look at this draft class, because they ended up with a lot of picks. Of course, first pick overall, Trevor Lawrence, the future of the franchise. They come back and actually traded up in the first round to go get Travis Etienne, which is not a move that I was super excited about. But if they have a plan for him, this could be something that works out very, very well. I guess the questions are, what happens with running back James Robinson? A lot of his value is probably going to take a hit. We have seen Travis Etienne working as a wide receiver exclusively in the first handful of OTAs. So he might be kind of one of those PPR satellite backs, maybe kind of used like a Kareem Hunt would be. So I'm interested in Travis Etienne at some point. And then round 2, they get Tyson Campbell, cornerback out of Georgia, really solid pick. Another round 2 pick, Walker Little, offensive tackle out of Stanford, a 3rd round pick here in Andre Cisco, safety out of Syracuse. 2 4th-round picks here, defensive tackle Jay Tufel out of USC, and defensive end Jordan Smith out of UAB. They get tight end Luke Farrell in the 5th round here out of Ohio State, of course. And then a really strong pick here at the end in the 6th round, Jalen Camp out of Georgia Tech, a guy who I'm actually really excited about for Dynasty. So I really like this class, man. Like quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, all those got addressed. The defense got a heavy overload too. Cornerback, safety, defensive tackle, defensive end, along with all of these notable additions here. So Jacksonville's putting together a pretty nice competitive roster this season. They should be much better this year than the 1-15 club that we saw last year. I'm not expecting a playoff berth or a playoff push at all, but like 6-7 wins is definitely within the reach here. So with all that, additions in draft class being said, let's look at and see what this depth chart looks like. So blue is drafted, green equals UDFA. You see 3 big blue names here. And at the top, of course, Trevor Lawrence. Backup is going to be Gardner Minshew, CJ Beathard, and Jake Luton's back for another season. But it's all about Trevor Lawrence. He's going to start right away. We should see him, as long as he's healthy, play the full 17-game season and then just take his lumps. I think that's what is important this season. We don't expect Jacksonville to put together a winning team or a playoff team quite yet. But we want him to just get acclimated to the offense, get some chemistry with DJ Chark and Chenault and Marvin Jones. And, of course, the running backs. But I'm excited about Trevor Lawrence as far as drafting him. He should be kind of a super flex quarterback too. I don't think we want to use him as a quarterback one this season, but I could be wrong. He might be a nice guy that you add at the end of your bench and just kind of see what happens. But I love the idea of Trevor Lawrence kind of developing as the season goes along and becomes a guy that, as the season turns to November, December, he's a guy that we're looking at for starting in even one quarterback leagues, but definitely super flex leagues. I think that's where I'm most excited about him. Best ball leagues as well. Now, the running back room: James Robinson, Travis Etienne, Carlos Hyde is there, Raquel Armstead, Dare Ogunbowale, Divine Azigbo, Nathan Cottrell. So the guys that we're interested in drafting, of course, James Robinson, Travis Etienne. Let's take a peek real quick at, I wanted to show, let's just look at the FF Today stats from last season. Let's see where James Robinson ended up. I think he was like RB4, RB3. He was RB7 last year, so he missed the last couple games in the season, but 240 carries, 1,070 yards, and 7 touchdowns. But his work as a receiver, this is why I was a little confused with the Etienne pick. The guy catches 49 receptions, 60 targets, 344 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Like, he was an absolute gem in pass blocking and, catching the ball out of the backfield. So I'm nervous about this because his numbers are going to come down pretty massively, maybe 30-40% of this. I don't expect him to get the 240 carries as well this season. That's probably going to be more around 200. So he's losing a lot of work, a lot of volume. And at this point, I'm seeing James Robinson drop to the 5th, sometimes 6th round. And at this point, like, we kind of got to view him as a top 30 running back, a guy that you would not mind as your running back too. But he's kind of more best drafted as a wide running back 3. So he could be kind of down here in this 25 to 30 range by the end of the season. I just think Etienne's going to kind of clog up a lot of the work here. So I do have Etienne listed as a co-starter. I think he's going to be kind of a 3rd down back. Now, I don't think Etienne's going to steal too many carries away from James Robinson, but they could force the issue. It's a 1st round running back versus a 7th round. Wasn't he a UDFA last year? So I do have the running back split here of 179 carries to 103, with 179 to James Robinson. In terms of receptions, I have 33 catches for James Robinson, 47 for Etienne, not a lot more yards, but considerable amount. For fantasy production, 350 yards and 1 touchdown for each running back here. In terms of PPR points, James Robinson with 185 and Etienne with 145. So last year, 185 points would have put James Robinson as RB21, and 145 would have put Etienne as running back 32. So again, I'm not sure how this split's going to be. This is going to be something that I watch hard and closely throughout the summer training camp. I could even see James Robinson getting more than 179 carries. So this is kind of his floor, I believe, and he's still coming out as a running back too. So if you see James Robinson start to fall into the 5th, 6th round, I do think that just the way he played last year, I trust him a little bit more than Etienne in between the tackles. He's going to be their banger. He could also be their goal line back still, and he's still a really good pass catcher. And Trevor Lawrence throws the ball really, really well to running backs. So I do expect that to be a more focal point of the offense this year. I have 125 total targets to running backs. Last season, they threw it about 113, so a slight uptick there. But go ahead and I think we should be drafting James Robinson. I see Etienne going in the 4th and 5th round, and that's just not adding up to me. We could see it happen, but for now, I think I'm leaning towards taking James Robinson, who's been cheaper in drafts right now, and I think he's going to get more touches in the long term. So Carlos Hyde, Raquel Armstead, Dare Ogunbowale, not interested in the backups, but we can continue to draft Robinson and Etienne. I just think we need to limit our expectations, kind of view both guys as a running back, like 2-3, kind of like a flex position almost. So it's going to be interesting to see 1st round talent in Travis Etienne versus the incumbent UDFA, maybe the rookie of I thought he was the rookie of the year, was he not, last season? But anyways, wide receivers, this is where I think we're going to have the most fun. And just there's not a lot of clarity with the running backs. I don't know how it's going to go. I feel much safer drafting a DJ Chark, a Laviska Shenault, Marvin Jones. I think Marvin Jones is going to be very sneaky. You think about how good he's been with Detroit, his career, and you're looking at a guy that he has DJ Chark, Laviska Shenault alongside him now. That's probably significantly better weapons than he's had in Detroit besides Kenny Golladay, on the outside. So you're looking at Marvin Jones, a guy who's been in Darrell Bevell's system the last couple of seasons, and just a veteran receiver that Lawrence can probably depend on. It wouldn't surprise me to see Marvin Jones have a really good season. DJ Chark's probably going in the 6th, sometimes 7th round of drafts. I think he's going to be a wide receiver 2 value. And then same thing with Laviska Shenault. I think he's going to rack up a ton of catches, be a useful PPR receiver for us, and hopefully maybe start seeing some more carries like we thought he was going to get last season. Now, the guys on the bench, Colin Johnson, I think he played really well for a rookie last year. Jamal Agnew, crossover from Detroit. He's probably going to be their primary special teams guy. But Jalen Camp, if you're in dynasty leagues and still haven't drafted yet, throw a late round dart at Jalen Camp. He could eventually be the number 3 wide receiver here. Really big bodied receiver, really fast. He played at Georgia Tech, so there's not a lot of tape on him. You know, a heavy run team that maybe throws the ball 7-8 times a game. But when they did throw the ball, it was going deep to Camp. So I think that could be a nice fit with Trevor Lawrence. And then you got like Philip Dorsett, Terry Godwin, Josh Hammond, John Vea Johnson, and then a couple UDFAs there, Tim Jones and Josh Imatorbhebhe. But anyways, Chark, Laviska Shenault, Marvin Jones, I think these guys should all be best ball targets for sure. And I find myself buying the Marvin Jones quite a bit because he's the cheapest one of the group. And again, he's just got the continuity with Darrell Bevell. And he's also just a veteran receiver that Lawrence, I think, will develop and trust fairly quickly right away on those important 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 9s, things like that. So get the receivers. I think I feel best about those guys being wide receiver 3s or better. And then you're looking at the tight end room. James O'Shaughnessy is kind of the last man standing there. They did not re-sign Tyler Eifert. They have Chris Manhertz, who they added from Carolina. Ben Ellefson. They drafted Luke Farrell in the 5th round. Tyler Davis. And then Tim Tebow is on the team. So we really can't draft a tight end from the Jacksonville Jaguars unless they traded for like Zach Ertz or something. So I think I'm just going to kind of gloss over this, but we'll show you guys what they did last year with the tight ends first. Last season, Tyler Eifert had a nice season, 36 catches, 36 catches, 60 targets, almost 350 yards and 2 touchdowns. It was a fine season. He just is not back with the team. James O'Shaughnessy was the number 2 last year. He caught 28 of 38 targets, 262 yards. So if O'Shaughnessy is getting 50, 60 targets, some touchdowns, maybe a guy in best ball that you can kind of throw in late. But with this whole Tim Tebow stuff, it's just making me really question what we're doing here at tight end. I do have Tebow projected for 7 catches, 13 targets, and 70 yards here, even a touchdown. So we're kind of just going to avoid all the tight ends from Jacksonville. And I think the only guys that I can stamp my flag in is try to grab a Jaguars receiver, Chark, Shenault, or Jones. And then in the 4th and 5th round, I can't pull the trigger on Travis Etienne. In the 5th or 6th round, I can do it on James Robinson. I just think in the long term, he's going to get the more carries. And the reception split, that's going to be the number that probably leans towards Etienne. But I would bank on James Robinson getting 12 to 15 carries a game. Etienne just sprinkled in a little bit. But we'll see what happens. I don't have a lot of clarity with the running back room, so that's why I'm kind of hesitant there. But I do like Trevor Lawrence as a quarterback 2 in Superflex leagues. And then again, Chark, Shenault, Jones. A really big fan of Chark and Shenault. But Marvin Jones is probably the cheapest of the group, and I think he could lead the team in touchdowns. You know, he's just a really good veteran receiver. He's been the leading touchdown guy, I think, for Detroit for a handful of seasons as well. So I don't know. I'm excited to see Urban Meyer, new offense, Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne. We'll see a healthy DJ Chark, a new Laviska Shenault around year 2, and then Marvin Jones. This team could be kind of special. Maybe 7-8 wins this season with all those players that they moved and added in free agency. So there's a lot to like in Jacksonville, but that's going to do it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I'm excited about the Jaguars. So I don't know. That's going to be it, though. Thank you guys for your time. We'll be covering the Titans in the next video, so stay tuned for that, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Cool. Peace.